We're looking at Deuteronomy under the survey of the New Testament designed for Native Americans. My name is Robert Corah, teaching from Three Feathers Ministry, nativemi.org. In the survey of Deuteronomy, the title of the book, Deuteronomy, means second law. It's really an expansion of much of the original law that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. Now, under Deuteronomy, there's renewal, there's law, there's obedience, and inheritance. Under the survey of the book of Deuteronomy, the human writer of the book is Moses. Found in Deuteronomy 1:1, verse 5, 31, verse 9, 22, and 24. The date and setting of Deuteronomy covers about 1 month of time at the end of the wilderness wandering around 1405 BC. Now, interesting facts about Deuteronomy covers about 1 month. It's called the Book of Remembrances. The first generation that left had died off. Now the second generation that will go into the promised land, Moses expounds the law and expands it here. He does it in the sermon and found in chapter 1 through chapter 4, verse 3, and in the second sermon beginning in chapter 4 through chapter 26, a third sermon in 27 to 34. Two important passages. Then Moses and the priests and the Levites spoke to all Israel, saying, "Take heed and listen, O Israel, this day you become the people of the Lord your God. Therefore you shall obey the voice of the Lord your God, and observe his commandments and his statutes which I have commanded you today." Found in Deuteronomy 17, verses 9 and 10. Then in Deuteronomy 34, verse 10 to 12, it says, "But since then there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, and all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt before Pharaoh, before all his servants, and before all his land, and by all the mighty power and great terror which Moses performed in the sight of Israel." Much of the new generation of Israelites had not personally experienced the deliverance from Egypt, the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea, or the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. It was important for Moses to remind the new generation about the great acts of God on behalf of the nation of Israel and how he expected them to live. The book of Deuteronomy is the record of the reinstatement of the covenant God made with the Israelites at Mount Sinai, initially recorded in Exodus. The book of Deuteronomy may be divided into two main sections. 3 addresses by Moses to the new generation of Israelites, chapters 1 to 30, and events at the end of Moses' life, chapters 31 to 34. In Deuteronomy, Moses' first address reminds the Israelites of God's command to take possession of the land he had promised them. Moses' appointment of men from each tribe to help him lead Israel. The sending out of men to explore the land of Canaan. Their past murmurings, unbelief, and disobedience against God. God's mighty acts in delivering Israel from their enemies in the wilderness. The division of land east of the Jordan River, Deuteronomy chapter 3, verses 12 through 20. The fact that Moses had been forbidden to enter the promised land. The command to obey God. A warning against idolatry. A reminder of the majesty of God that they had experienced at Mount Sinai. The theme of Moses' first address is to remember what happened to the Israelites' ancestors in the past. Much like American Indians, Moses concludes the first address with a very important statement. "Know therefore this day, and consider it in thine heart, that the Lord, he is God in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath. There is none else. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command you this day, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong your days upon the earth, which Lord your God gives to you forever. Deuteronomy 4, verses 39 and 40. Moses' second address reminds the Israelites that their future as a nation in Canaan depends upon their right relationship with God. This address focuses upon three categories of God's law, with applications for specific situations. 1. Moral duties, Deuteronomy chapters 5 to 11. Love and obey God. 2. Ceremonial duties, Deuteronomy 12 through chapter 16. In regard to sacrifices, tithes, and feasts. 3. Civil duties, chapters 16 to 20. And social duties, chapters 21 to 26, including legal matters. Moses' third address writes history in advance, including 1. The near future, the blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience that the Israelites would experience, chapters 27 to 28. The distant future, the dispersion among the foreign nations and eventual return to the Lord that the Israelites will experience, found in chapter 30, verses 1 to verse 10. In Deuteronomy chapter 31, Moses publicly commissions Joshua as his successor. And in chapters 32 and 34, God tells Moses to climb Mount Nebo, where he'll be able to see, but not enter the promised land. Moses dies on the mountain, and God buries him in an unknown place. God himself was Moses' undertaker. Here's a chart of interesting facts about Moses. You like, go ahead and pause and look at this. This is a survey of the Old Testament. And then we see in the timeline, we've looked at creation, primeval, patriarchal, Egypt, and the wilderness. The next chart, we see creation, Abraham, death of Abraham, Joseph, Jacob's family, death of Joseph, Egyptian bondage, and death of Moses. Then we see the next journey through the Bible. You may want to pause and look at that chart. Here's the homework. Look at the QR code. And this is a survey of the Old Testament Deuteronomy by nativemi.org. Thank you, Rich Costanza, for the notes provided for this study. nativemi.org.